please. All right. Hello, everyone, to the Adobe Analytics user group meeting of the EMEA user group happening in September 2023. I'm Frederick. I'm the head of analytics of Acutics, and let's get started with our content for today. So, as always, with those quarterly user group meetings, what I'm going to do, besides the introduction, is I'm going to give you a quick rundown of this year's Adobe Analytics release notes, all the new features that have been released for us and are waiting for us to be used. And it's going to take a little bit more than 10 minutes, I assume, because those have just been coming in over the year, and I'm trying to cover as much as possible of that. And after that, we're going to have a little breakout session. So we're going to get into some breakout rooms for a little get-together to exchange some ideas, some experiences, some wins, some losers, like whatever it is that is on your mind. So, on to the introduction. So, I see I need to get that slide updated because I did update the sponsors, but on the actual screenshot from the page, because, we are the Adobe Analytics EMEA user group. And not that long ago, we still had Daniel with us, who was then answering like different calls from his company. So he's now focusing on different things like a kid, and he doesn't have the time anymore to hold those user group meetings with me. So I'm all on my own at the moment. If you would like to host a user group on your own, or not on your own, but with me, which is even worse than that, feel free to reach out via the user group page. And maybe you get selected to be a user group lead along with me, because I'm looking for someone to share a little bit of the, not that much work, but still. If you would like to do that, please reach out. So, for anyone who's new here, I do see some new names in the chat. What we want to achieve with this user group is we, of course, want to help people create more value out of their investment into Adobe Analytics, and possibly in the future also customer journey analytics, because more and more people are migrating to customer journey analytics, and we're going to cover that at some point. We want to bring people together around our favorite topic of analytics and Adobe Analytics, connect the community to our Adobe product management. So if you were present at the in-person user group meeting that happened at the EMEA Summit, and we actually had the Adobe product management team in person there. So that was quite the connection we made there, I think. We want to be a platform for great new content and new voices. So if you have something to share, some use cases, some unusual features that you use in a cool way, also feel free to reach out and we can have you present at one of our meetings. We want to offer something that is quite similar to what the people in the US have, because if you take a look at the map of user groups across the world, you can see that in the US you have like so many user groups. Also in Canada, in the in EMEA, you don't have that many, and we want to be a platform to just connect people to a little bit more. And last but not least, have fun. So what we did at the user group meeting in London was pretty much fun. We just like to, hang out and chat around our favorite topics, right? So, next slide. Also, for everyone who's joining today for the first time, make sure that you also join the user group chapter, because you can actually be on this meeting today and also meetings in the future without being part of the user group chapter. And that will have you miss out on future meetings and mails that we send out every now and then. So if you want to come in the future, if you want to stay in the know and just see what happens, you need to click this. There's my mouse, this big blue join chapter button on the chapter page on analyticsaugs.adobe.com, and make sure that you also do that. What we also have is a YouTube channel. So every user group meeting like this one, up until the breakout part of the meeting, is recorded and it's uploaded to the Adobe Analytics user groups channel. By now, we do have quite some more subscribers than the 9 when I took this screenshot here. But this is a great place to just see all the previous user group meetings. So if you're, for example, keen on a demo that I've given for a previous feature release, then you can see all the recordings from this year also on that channel. Yeah, just to didn't take that slide out. Just if you're curious what happened at the EMEA summit and you weren't there, we had our very first in-person meetup. So you can see me on the stage there and also some of our partners, but also sitting right here, people like Trevor Paulson from the Adobe Analytics product team. And there's also sitting on site there, Jen Nesser, also from the product team. And yeah, some news were shared, some product features announced, and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty much fun. And yeah, make sure that you're part of the chapter so you don't miss the next in-person meetup, wherever that's going to be, maybe for next summit. Oh yeah, one last slide that I always forget I put in here. We also have a German-speaking Adobe Analytics user group now. We're still looking for a occasion to do our first meeting. If that's in person or virtual, we don't know yet. But also, if you're German-speaking and you would like to learn more about Adobe Analytics in German, then also consider joining that user group by again clicking the Join Chapter button. So that was the introduction. I'm still on time, very good. So let's actually see what we have in terms of new Adobe Analytics features. So the first, I think, 3 slides are actually like features that we already discussed in previous meetings. So if you want to have some more examples for that, or also some more details about what has been released this year, feel free to check out the YouTube channel because you have all the recordings there. And yeah, there you have all the details. I also see Chase, thank you for that, has already put the link to the chapter into the chat, so you can just click that link for your convenience. So, new Adobe Analytics features that we have gotten this year. So we started the year off with a pretty loud bang because we got something that we've always been asking for, which is folders in an as workspace. So in the project list, we can now organize things in a better way and put things in folders. We also have now auto saving for new projects. So even before we save a project for the first time, we also have a nice save feature so we don't lose our work all the time. We have some more user preferences, so we can set things like for your line chart. If you always want to have annotations disabled, or if you always want to have your like your y-axis anchored at 0, you can just set that for all of your feature visualizations. There's some really cool stuff in there. So that was really, really good. We also have some calendar updates in Workspace, so we can now make the calendar relative to the date range, which is super cool and useful. If you want to do like year-on-year or month-on-month analysis, you have the data dictionary in Analysis Workspace, which is a super cool addition because now we can give some more documentation to a users. You can show like which components can be used with each other and that kind of thing. So that's a really, really cool addition. If you're using the mobile app, you also have this. I haven't actually tried this myself. That's why I'm laughing. It's been released since March, so I definitely need to get to that at some point. But you also have the data stories features in mobile dashboards. So if you download the mobile app, you can now actually like it's a little bit like a slideshow that you can show to your executives and all that, where you want to tell a data story. That's how they sell it. Like with a set of slides, like very, very much like in Power BI or Tableau, where you just have multiple pages for a report, and that's quite neat. And then last but not least, for the first set of features that was released, we have now link sharing for projects without a login. So if you want to just send a project to your marketing agency, they should only have access to that one project because it's only for one marketing campaign. But they shouldn't be able to change anything. They shouldn't have full access. You can just send them a link. And that's super cool, something we always wanted to have. It's a little bit of a like management challenge in terms of giving people the rights to actually do that, but it's certainly a cool feature if you trust your people. Then going on to the second batch of new features. So right in Q2, then after the first set of features, we got even more. So for example, at least partially support for Activity Map with Web SDK. So in Web SDK, if you implement Adobe Analytics in a new and fancy way, you don't have Activity Map, and you have now something that is quite similar to Activity Map. It's not quite the same. It works in a different way, and the numbers might be a little bit different. But at least we have something that's quite close to what we had with Activity Map in App Measurement. We had some new features for classification sets. So if you haven't gotten the news yet. So classification sets are basically a new way to bring classifications into Adobe Analytics. And they are a little bit more easy to manage for larger implementations. They are like a little bit more centralized than the old way of like setting classifications up and setting especially import jobs up. So that's super cool because that feature is being built more and more. It broke some other old features, but well, at least they are still working on that, which is cool. They introduced a new app measurement variable called double encode link parameters. And that's actually not a new feature or anything, but it's a existing feature that you can now turn off because like in some edge cases, there were issues where you might have URLs that had other URLs in them, and those need to be encoded, and that might mess up your values in some way. And now you can actually switch that off and yeah, just track the values as they were before. By default, it's just going to be set as the like consistent retroactive way that it's always been. But yeah, it's nice to have. And then next up, we have some more secure destinations for data feed export. So things like Amazon S3 storage, RBAC, I think it's some Azure Cloud Storage, SAS, and Google Cloud Platform even. So if you want to export your data feeds to some new destinations like those ones, you can now do that. That's pretty cool because before I think it was only S3 and some Azure block storage, I think, and yeah, there's now even more of that. Some previously like unavailable features now also available, so you can have bot reportings in an Analysis workspace. That's super cool because that actually allows you to analyze your bot activity right within workspace and then create some calculated metrics if you like to and figure out which pages are very popular for your bots. And then you can also, there's been a demo of that in the previous user group meetings recording. You can now also delete like single rows of content in dynamic dimensions from a freeform table. So if you're building a freeform table of all the pages and you want to get rid of some line items in the table, you can now just get rid of them, which is going to create a filter on the fly. And that's super cool and super efficient if you just want to update that. So you should check that out if you haven't tried it already. There's now a button at every panel in an Analysis workspace to add a new visualization, which just helps a little bit to not always have to drag and drop from the left rail, which is cool. You also have now the option to deep link within mobile apps. So if you want to send people a certain page or a certain like part of your data within mobile apps, you can now do that with deep links, which is cool. I'm not using it that much, and I don't know if I would actually be doing that because if people don't have the app installed, like that might not work. But for those people who use the app a lot in your companies and everyone has access to it, that's pretty much cool. Something that I'm really, really excited about, and it's probably like one of my favorite features. Like there's been some cool stuff, but this one is like for me the biggest time saver, is that we now have dynamic dropdown. So there's also a big demo of that in the previous recording. So if you want to create a dropdown filter on top of your panel in Analysis workspace, previously you had to select all the ways that you want to have available in that panel and drag them in there so they are available. And now that's actually dynamic. So whenever you change the date range or like any filters on your panel, that's going to update to whatever your data actually holds. So if you have a filter for user agent, for example, and you put a segment on there for mobile traffic, it's only going to contain mobile user agents. If you like change the segment to only desktop traffic, it's only going to hold desktop user agents now. And that's super cool because it's something we've been asking for again for a long time, and it's now available as well. Then we can also sort components in Analysis workspace, which is neat. So the left component rail, we can now sort components in some new and clever ways. Like we didn't know, like when I put that here, when they were going to release it, it was already available at the time where they had it in the release notes. So yeah, I think it's just still generally available, which is cool. Whoops. So it was me messing up the scrolling. Sorry for that. Next, then the actual new features. So those are actually something that has been added right now. One for that is cloud account storage locations for ingesting classification data. And that's a mouthful of feature release. But what that means is we've talked about those classification sets before. And now we actually get some more import options for those classification sets, because now we can also import data from like Amazon S3 and Azure Blob Storage and like all those fancy cloud locations. We can now actually select that for our classification imports, which is super cool on one hand. On the other hand, it's also very clear what Adobe is trying to do then, because they're actually trying to get rid of the FTP servers. So if you set up classifications in the past or also today, you get this nice FTP location that you can upload your data to. And that's super neat, because we can just like dump all of our data there. Adobe is going to take care of the ingestion, and every company and every tool that I know in some level supports FTP. And for me, at least, it's pretty clear that they are now trying to get rid of that altogether, and they don't want to offer those FTP servers anymore. And in the future, we might need to just support our own like storage locations and our own cloud storage, whatever it is. Yeah, because there's, I think, not going to be any FTP in the future. Then, if you're one of the like maybe 3 companies in the world who actually uses the data repair API, you will be very pleased to know that there's going to be some filter enhancements. So it's now going to be even easier for you to select the data that you want to repair, create some new and exciting like filter options in there. It's cool for the people who use it. I never had access to it. I never used it, and I don't know if I actually would. But well, if you have, it's cool for you. And then something that I'm going to share in a second is the reporting activity manager, because I do have some opinions about that. But before I get to that, coming back to classification sets one more time. Now we can also manage classification sets via the 2.0 API, and that's cool because old classifications were only supported through the 1.4 API, so the older API. And now we can like create, delete, update classifications, and also, of course, import and export data for classifications through the 2.0 API. And if you're already using classification sets, if you want to play around with that, you can now even do that through the API, which is cool. It's the 2.0 API, it's the cool and new thing. So I'm pretty much a fan of that. So now let me show you this third item here on the page, the reporting activity manager, because I actually have that here in my browser. You should be able to see that. Yes, you are. So it's not released yet, so I can't show it in the tool to you, but this is a feature that I do have some concerns about, because what reporting activity manager basically is, it's a way for us to, well, see and manage and cancel all of the requests that are sent to the Adobe backend through, for example, Analytics Workspace. So if we scroll down here a little bit, they explain how all of that works. But here you can, for example, maybe there's a nicer screenshot. No, there isn't. So this light gray video screenshot here must do. But what you can see here is a list of all of your report suites, and you can see how much of that is currently used. And you can see that some of those show as at capacity, so those are fully utilized, whatever that means. And some of them aren't. And once you then actually go into a report suite, you can then see like what the trend of usage capacity is and all that information. And you're also able to, at some point, yes, you're also able to cancel those queries. And then in Analytics Workspace, if one of your requests has been actually canceled, people will see this error message that your request has been canceled by an administrator, and that you can put an email address there to contact people for why that happens. So this is something we never had to worry about in the past, right? So in the past, when we bought Adobe Analytics, we could just pay for however many server cores we wanted to have, and then it was good, right? And we were like, I think, full right to expect from Adobe that the stuff should just work. It should be quick and responsive and all that. And apparently Adobe has some has some second thoughts about that concept, and now they are also trying to like bring the concept of load to Adobe Analytics, so we can actually see how much Adobe like is utilized, and allow us to manage that in a like in some capacity. And what I've also seen, which is why this is even more concerning for me, is like in some presentations we have seen the idea of of add-ons that we can buy to get more reporting capacity in the future, which to me even more goes along the lines that I've just said, because I just expect our stuff to work. I expect it to be quick because we pay quite a lot of money to do for the tools, and yeah, you can let me know in chat if I'm just totally off by this expectation, but the idea of having to manage load and then having to buy add-ons to get more capacity, like that feels a little bit strange to me. And yeah, I think if that ever if that ever comes out on production, I think we should give Adobe some clear feedback that that's, at least for me, not what I expect from my enterprise analysis tool. But well, let's get back to the positive things now and the other things that have been released. And yeah, let me know in chat what your opinions are if you have any. But yeah, I would expect this to just work. So going on then, what we also have is the important Adobe Analytics changes section of the release notes. Because yeah, sometimes things get updated, old things stop to work, so we need to be aware of that. So beginning of the year, they migrated to a new carrier database called Net Acuity, and that just meant that like some of your like ISP and domain reports might have some slight changes in them because yeah, it's a new vendor, and they might identify a IP address as a different company or as a different network. So just so you're aware of that. In the same vein, they also improved the IP to geolocation mapping. So they say they improved it. So some changes towards the beginning of the year towards your built-in geolocation report should also be expected. They also like paused a bunch of things because they were updating their infrastructure, for example, for report builder and some scheduled reports and analytics. So don't be alarmed by that. It happened to everyone. They also brought some new device lookups based on client hints. So that's how in the future, when user agents are going to go away, at least Google wants to tell us what device and what browser people use. So there's been some updates to that to also support that. They have been automatically migrating our old classifications to the new classification set architecture. So if you have never heard about that, like if you've never been to the admin menu recently, you will find that that's already set up for you. And you can, for example, use those new cloud storage destinations or also sources, and also the new classification APIs. So what they've also like sunset in May is the people metric. So if you're like one of the 3 customers around the world who use the device co-op, like Adobe Analytics Ultimate kind of thing, that came with the people metric that has then been set to rest at May 8th. And yeah, towards the end of the year, as we all know, we have to say goodbye to reports and analytics, and also the publishing list feature within reports and analytics. So you should migrate your people to Workspace if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, like, you should really do that. It's great. Same is also true for good old Data Workbench. So I think that's like the last Adobe Analytics client software that's out there and that actually runs in your own data center. So if you're also one of the Data Workbench customers around the world, that's also going to be sunset by December. I don't know how much support it's still got, but yeah, also a very old feature. What then happened after that is there was a change to the expiration of purchase IDs and event IDs. So previously, those were just stored like to infinity. And like if you've ever set a purchase ID or an event ID for serialization, you could just rely on that being available indefinitely into the future. And now there's a 37-month expiration on that. So if you have, for example, purchase IDs that just reset after a certain amount of time, you might see some duplicate purchases and all that. So be aware of that feature or that change, because it might create some duplicates where you don't want them to be. Then the Adobe Analytics data feeds and warehouse servers got some new IP addresses that you need to whitelist if you, not whitelist, it's a bad word, but that you need to put on your allow list if you're doing firewalling around your like ingress servers in your data center. So be aware of that. There has been a, how was it called again? I think K-Track or Mod K-Track or something. So there has been a very, very old and very obscure feature for Japanese feature phones that has been retired by March 21. So if you're one of the like maybe 1.5 customers around the world who use that, this might also be relevant to you. And there's going to be a migration to the Adobe I/O OAuth server-to-server credentials. So if you're using today the, I think it's the web service credentials, you might need to migrate at some point. So January 1st, 2025, still some time left until then. But yeah, continue to update your API integrations, of course, over time, so you don't run into any issues when that date finally comes. So that was all I have prepared in terms of news and updates. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you for watching on YouTube.